It's happened a few times where a young guy comes up and he's like, who's the best player you ever played with? And I'm like, dude, I played with Albert Pujols.
Fly ball onto the track, at the wall, it's gone! Home run!
Turns on a ball, deep right field, and gone!
What a game, what a moment.
All right, I am pumped to welcome on the show now three-time All-Star, World Series champion in 2006, and 200-game winner on the dot, Adam Wainwright. Adam, thank you so much for joining me, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Of course. I got to start with, so last week had on Michael Wacha, and he told me to, he was very keen on me giving you a few words. He said, make sure you tell him, what's up, Gator Arms?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so I have the arms of like a 6'5" guy, but they're not short, they're just not gorilla arms like he has. So and his are hairy like a gorilla too.
Well, he did say, he said you were the biggest prankster on the team, biggest prankster he's ever played with. Told us about a prank that you played on Skip Schumacher when travel day, you went in, got his jersey, stitched your name on the back. So I got to ask, do you have a favorite all-time prank that you ever pulled?
That was one of my go-to because I got my buddy Blaine Boyer with that too. Favorite all-time prank. Skip actually is the master of that. Skip Schumacher is the master. He is the master of that. Skip would order breakfast in my room at like 6 o'clock in the morning. All the nastiest stuff off the menu too that you would never want. And he knows I don't like salmon. I think if there was one thing in my life that I never could smell or see or taste again, it would be salmon. I just don't get why people like that. It tastes like someone's pouring the ocean into my mouth. Anyways, it never failed. He would always order the lox,
Lox and bagels.
Like, golly, man. But you got to be respectful of the person that brings it. They knock until you open, when you bring a breakfast. And I think he wrote on there like, make sure you knock until I'm awake, so I wake up. But he was relentless about that. But I think so probably my favorite one ever. Skip had put baby powder in my vent, and cranked it up on high. So when I cranked the car, that was a standard protocol for Skip. I got my daughter was probably 1.5. Okay. It's that time where she's using a new diaper every like couple of minutes. And I saved up all the poop diapers and the TT diapers for like 2 weeks. And I kept them in this black trash bag, and it was putrid. And after he got me with that, I saved them up. I knew he was going to do something, so I had them saved up, and I filled his car up on the hottest day of spring. I waited till it was going to be like almost 90 degrees in spring training down in Florida. And I filled his car up, stuffed it all up under the seats with those poop. And the worst ones actually were the TT diapers, man. There's that rancid pee sits around there. And I filled his car up with like 30 or 40 of those things and just let it just fester in there. And that horrible smell was in there for weeks.
Oh, God. What was his reaction to that?
I think itch powder was his reaction to that.
So we were when I was talking to Wacha last week, we were talking about you for a little while, and he said you were good at everything. He said ping pong, and I know you were Gatorade Georgia Player of the Year in 2000, All-Star as a wide receiver, dabbled in some kicking stuff. So I need one thing from you that you are shockingly terrible at.
Oh, easy answer. Skating. Terrible at skating. I can't relax or something. I spend my entire time back in skating was like a real thing, like rollerblades were hot when I was a young kid.
Yeah.
And the rollerblade, I spent my time trying not to fall the whole time instead of just relaxing and finally got to a point where I could at least skate around a little bit. But man, I am so bad on skates. I'm going skiing for the first time in my life this December, and I hope that I'm not going to be like I skate when I ski, because it's really bad.
I was going to ask if that translates over to everything balance wise, pretty much, you know, the skating, skiing, surfing, all of that stuff. I guess we'll find out.
We're going to find out. Never surfed a day in my life. Lived at the beach my whole life. Never surfed. Terrible skater. Don't know about skiing. We're going to find out. I'm probably not going to be very good at it as a 6'7", 42-year-old, 43-year-old at that time, 43. So we'll see. It's probably not going to be great, which will be good. Be good for my kids to see, you know, their dad struggling something.
Speaking of being pretty much good at everything else, on opening day last year, your last season in Major League Baseball, you sang the national anthem in front of close to 50,000 fans, and it was awesome. How nervous were you for doing that?
Most nervous I've ever been for anything in my entire life. No question about it. Not even close. I mean, you know, I like performing and singing in front of people and getting on stage. I love that kind of stuff, and public speaking I'm fine with. I have no nerves whatsoever. Then I started thinking about the national anthem and like how big that song is. And it's not an easy song to sing, by the way. There's a lot of note changes in there and stuff. It's pretty tough. But also, if you botch the words, everybody in the stadium is going to know it instantly, you know. And then I started thinking, oh man, remember that clip of Carl Lewis singing the national anthem? And then I started thinking about Roseanne Barr singing the anthem. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just don't end up on like the not hot list, you know, like that was started creeping in my mind. I don't really think about failure when I do things, and all I could think about in that was failure. And so then right before I go out, they go, hey, if you get stuck, don't worry, because the words are going to be up on the screen. And I was like, oh, praise Jesus, man. I need good. Okay, that helps me. And so I get out there and I start singing, and there's a 2-second delay. So I can't hear anything that's going on. That was not my best performance, by the way. I'm a little off key. I can't hear my guitars around me. I can't hear myself because of a 2-second delay. I sang it so slow because when I started singing, I couldn't hear. And so I'm like, all right, it just didn't. And I'm like, oh, there it is. But then I committed, like 10 seconds in, I knew I committed to this really slow pace. So I'm like, I got to roll this slow pace. All the players are going to hate me now. But and then I started singing, and then the words of the song are in the middle of the song when I start singing. So I'm like, all right, I'm on an island. I'm on my own here. And so luckily I didn't forget the words, which is the main thing in that spot. You know, don't forget the words to the most iconic song ever. So we got through it. It was all right. I had fun doing it. I'm glad I did it though.
Well, you just released your country album, Hey Y'all, which, by the way, listened to it. Awesome. Loved it. Hey Y'all, probably my favorite on there. But you made your debut at the Grand Ole Opry. How's the music career going, man? That's so cool.
Yeah, it's going good. When I started writing and singing and playing, I was just kind of doing it as to be able to have my own songs around the campfire with the buddies, you know, or I'm just sitting around the back porch with friends and family and stuff. And then I started to work with some really great people that helped me a lot on understanding how to write better and make it flow better, and, you know, write a better story. And I love telling stories. I love writing stories. The whole part of the music process, my favorite part of the whole process is writing. I love the writing part. Creating something new is really, really awesome. But as it wore on and got going, it just became a little bigger than I thought. And so I have come into this with no expectations. It's far exceeded anything I thought it was going to. Getting to play the Opry, getting to open up for Zach Brown a couple of weeks ago. I'm gonna play with Riley Green here in a couple of weeks, and Travis Tritt, Sheryl Crow. I'm opening for Ludacris one time. Like it's really neat. Yeah, it's really, really fun. So I'm having so much fun playing, you know, understanding this whole new world that I never got to be a part of. So I'm having fun with it.
Well, before the music career, you were a baseball player, born in Georgia, drafted in the first round to your hometown team, by the way. What was your draft day story like? Being able to, 1, get drafted in the first round, 2, get drafted to your hometown team, the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah, Well, so we didn't have the big production like they do now, which is, I wish, man, I would have loved that. That would have been a really cool time for a kid. I'm so glad they do that. That's so big for a young person's life. I think it's just really neat. I was on dial up. We had the dial up computer. So it was like,
Yeah.
and I was pick number 29. We had everybody in my neighborhood, all our friends, and everybody was out in the yard and in the big room that I was in, and girlfriend sitting next to me, who I'm married now to, and then my brother's to my left, and my mom's over here, and my uncle's back here, and my next door neighbors are all around me, and best friends in high school and stuff are all around me, and it would have been cool to be drafted by anyone, but when I was drafted by the Atlanta Braves, the place went berserk. I couldn't believe it. I was just so thankful for that, and in my mind, you get drafted. All right, well, I'll be in the big leagues in 2 years. Me and Smoltz, and 5.5 years later, I finally made it. But it was just a really special time, and I still have pictures of me holding up a Braves tag that went, right on my car right away. I put the Braves. I'm a Brave. I wore the Braves hat every day to school, and I put the Braves thing on my truck, and I don't know, man. I was proud to be there.
So cool, man. We have, speaking of Smoltz, I have Smoltz on the show every single week. We have him on weekly. And I know you were in Double-A in 2003 when everything changed, but did you have any interaction with Smoltz or a good Smoltz story from before you got traded?
Yeah. Well, so Smoltz and I, he was one of my 4 guys growing up, that maybe 5 guys, that, because I was just obsessed with the Braves, man. Everything was revolved around them. Glavine, Maddox, Smoltz, obviously, but there was a young guy named Steve Avery who was probably my favorite of the bunch when he first came out. He was the kid. He was like the 21-year-old kid, NLCS MVP, just super stud left-handed pitcher, and then Chipper, obviously, in '95 when he came up and made such an impact. Those guys were huge, and so, but Smoltz, I tried to pull little things out from each one of those guys. Maddox's was real cerebral and always thinking and moving the ball around, and Glavine was that real stoic guy that could pinpoint things, and then Smoltz was this ultimate competitor, and you wanted him on the mound. Of all the pitchers, you wanted him on the mound in the playoffs. I mean, I think any Braves fan would have said the same thing. He pitched some legendary games, but postseason for the Braves. But getting to hang around him, the guy's like an Energizer bunny. Never stops. He still doesn't stop. The guy plays if he goes and plays basketball, he play 4 games of basketball, and they'll go straight to the golf course and play 2 rounds of golf, and they'll go straight to the tennis courts and play 3 games of tennis, and then go home and play ping pong and pool. He's like a kid in a 55-year-old man's body.
Yeah, if he only plays 18 holes of golf in one day, he has underperformed what he normally does.
Super bummed. He called me a couple years ago, and he goes, "I did it. I finally did it." What'd you do, Smoltzy? He said, I played 72 holes in one day. He played 4 rounds of golf in one day down at my home club, Frederica, in South Georgia.
I've played Frederica.
I know you have. I know your family's down there some. So, but one time I would say I don't always like bragging on Smoltzy because, it goes to his head a little bit. But I was, when we would get done with practice, Braves spring training practice they had it going on. They had this thing figured out. The Braves in the 90s were the best team in baseball every year. The Braves in spring training in the 90s and 2000s were the best spring training team every year. And these guys were in there. They were in there at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning every day. You were out of there by 9:30. Out. When it was just practice, no games, out of there at 9:30. Straight to the golf course. Straight to the back basketball courts back there behind the Wild World of Sports in Disney to play basketball, pick up basketball, or there's football fields back there. I saw Smoltzy, this son of a gun. I was a kicker in high school also, like you said, and I fashioned myself a pretty good athlete. Mm-hmm. This guy's the best athlete I've ever seen. He was one of the best basketball players I've ever seen, period. I mean, unbelievable basketball player. Incredible shot, incredible passing, dribbling skills. You just never would have thought. He was recruited by Michigan State coming out of high school.
Yeah.
He's a legit D1 basketball player. I saw him kick a 45-yard field goal, soccer style, and I'm like, God, man, that's pretty cool. Not because, it's one thing to back up and toe ball, toe one over, whatever. He kicked it right. He kicked a 45-yard field goal, playing basketball, playing golf, playing darts, playing tennis, playing pool, ping pong. He's like, pretty much as best as there is at all of them. It's incredible.
Speaking of that, so that trade that moved you from the Braves to the Cardinals happened in 2003. You, Jason Marquis, Ray King to the Cardinals. JD Drew went back to the Braves. Can you run me through how the trade came about, what you remember from that time when the trade went down?
Yeah, very memorable moment for me. I had driven up to North Georgia. My girlfriend's family had moved up from our little hometown to Gainesville, Georgia, which was about 6 hours away. I drove up there to ask her dad for permission to marry her. And so, I just finished my AA season, and things are going okay. They're going pretty good. Eventually I'm hoping I'm trending in the right direction to be a big league baseball player, and had a little sign-in bonus to work with. So I'm thinking, all right, she's gonna, I've been dating this girl for 5 years. She's gonna love this. And so I drive up there and, talk about the security that I could offer, and, playing for the Braves. We're close to home, and, you can always come see us. And I love your daughter. I'd love to ask for her hand in marriage. And at that second, before he could answer, the phone's ringing. And it had been ringing. And finally it rings at their house phone. He gets up to answer it. I'm like, I can't believe he got up to answer that phone during this conversation. He gets up and answers it, and it's Dayton Moore on the phone with my mom, and my mom's crying, and Dayton's all emotional and said, "Man, we had to trade you." And so then I had to go back into the room and say, "What? Funny thing, we play for a different team now. We play for the Cardinals, not at home, but you can still come see. Security maybe not, but I still love her the same. And, it was a really interesting time, but ended up being the greatest thing that could ever happen to me. I think at the end of the day, the Cardinals ended up coming out ahead on that trade.
You ended up, you got the call up in 2005. I like asking everybody that comes on the show this because it's a dream come true sort of call. But what was your call up to the big league story like? How do you remember that going down?
So my agent had told me, like, "Hey, listen, I talked to the Cardinals. They're going to call you up, so, they said it's happening. Don't get too excited. It hasn't happened yet. So don't put all your, hopes into that basket, but it seems like it's going to happen. So, just, congratulations." I'm like, "Well, I mean, don't congratulate me before it's happened either if you don't want to get excited about it." So, we played the last game, and I had a pretty decent year, not great year, decent year.
Yeah.
But I've been, minor league guy prospect for a few years in a row. And I was kind of hoping this would be my time. And my manager knew that. He kind of played off that. He told the other three guys that were going up, called him in the office right as soon as the game was over. They were going, "Hey, congratulations, whatever, you're a big leaguer, blah, blah, blah." And they came coming in, hugging the guys, and then everybody left. And I'm like, well, I just got to act like I'm sticking around for a bit. So I went in and worked out, did some, some stuff, shoulder exercises, doing some squats in there. And I see our manager walk through, and I'm like, "Hey, Skipper, what's going on, bud?" He's like, "Nothing, man. You all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just going to be here for a while working out." And he let me work out for like 20 more minutes. And I'm just like, "God, did this not happen? What's happening?" And he had me wondering if it was happening or not. And then he called me in and he was like, "Yeah, you're going up. Congratulations."
You ended
just
up
messing with.
You got to be you were in the big leagues for a long time, but you got to be teammates with Albert Pujols through his absolute prime. I mean, if not the best right-handed hitters of all time, one of the best hitters of all time in general. If you could describe Albert Pujols as someone that was with him day in and day out through his best years, how would you do it?
Yeah. Well, somebody asked me one time, it was happened a few times, where a young guy comes up and he's like, who's the best player you ever played with? And I'm like, dude, I played with Albert Pujols. And they're like, what about Yachty? I'm like, yeah, Yachty's the greatest catcher of all time. He's amazing. But I played with Albert Pujols. You know what I mean? Like, do you understand how great that was? And they're like, well, I mean, yeah, he's with the Angels and he's hitting 270 he's got 20. I'm like, let me tell you something. Albert Pujols was 330 with 35 to 49 home runs every single year with 120 ribbies every year. Book it. It was happening. And let me tell you something about that. All those hits and home runs were when we had to have it. I mean, there was one game, I think it was the home opener in 2006. We had a few guys that were out there. Jimmy was out there. Roland was out there. They were banged up. They were injured. It wasn't exactly right. Albert was the only guy we had going. We needed Albert to do something great. The guy hit 3 home runs. Anytime there was a game that, like, oh my gosh, man, we just got to get Albert up. And then I just can never figure out why they pitched to him, because every time we needed him, bam, he had that bat. But here's the thing about Albert. Albert Pujols was a student of the game. When I got to the field every day, I felt like I was getting there pretty early. Albert was already there. He was in the film room. He was studying the pitcher. Wow. He was studying the tendencies. He was watching for tips. He was locked in on his approach that day. He was in the cage. He was working on every inch of his little swing. He was working on making everything perfect every day, relentlessly, like it was clockwork. You knew what time of day it was. You knew where he was at that point in time. Like he really was a machine, like that ESPN commercial. And, I think so many times people think the best players are just because they're the most talent. But, he had a lot of talent for sure. But Albert worked it. I played with a lot of guys that had talent that never made it or never panned out because they just didn't pour into it like Albert did. And so it's just special player, special talent, great teammate, great player, obviously, but the best, I think.
You brought up 2006. I'm hesitant to even bring it up because it's a tough memory for me sitting in those stands. But no, in all honesty, 2006, you and the Cardinals against my brother's team, Detroit Tigers, in the World Series. You got pushed into the closer role that year. So you're pitching 9th inning because Jason Isringhausen went down, I believe, had season-ending surgery. First off, was that a comfortable move for you? What was that like, him going down and then you getting pushed into the closer role?
Yeah, I mean, before that season, I had made some mental adjustments. So I was finally ready to be a big leaguer. I mean, I think there's a thing where you can tell when the way a player moves, acts, and this is spring training, the way he looks in his uniform, that dude's a big leaguer, or he's got a little work, it's like you can feel it about him, and I finally got that before the 06 season. And I'll tell you, Tony La Russa and Dave Duncan just did such an amazing job of bringing me along slowly, so that when that time came, I was ready for it. I started off as the long guy in the bullpen. And I started off, and then I kind of worked my way up, and I was always pitching the 6th inning. And then, I was pitching the 7th inning. And then I started sharing 8th inning duties with Braden Looper. And then, the last week of the season, I only had one real save off during the regular season. I had a couple of saves that year, but it was like my first save was a 3-inning save. I only had one real save opportunity, and it was like the last, maybe like 4 days left of the season. We were winning by half a game only over the Astros. We had a 10-game lead, and we blew it. We were just playing terrible. Everyone was hurt. We were playing the Brewers. We were losing 2-0 going in the 9th inning. Braden Looper was warming up on the mound, and Scott Spezio came up and hit a bases clearing triple to go up 3-2 with 2 outs in the bottom of the 8th. And Braden had been warming up all the time. You get up and stretch in the 5th or whatever and do your things, but I wasn't ready to go in the game. And the phone rang, said, "Sit Braden down, get Adam up." I threw 3 pitches in the bullpen and went out and went 1, 2, 3. And it was never a thought. Like I was like, I wanted that ball so bad at that point. I thought I was ready for that time. I was so confident going into that moment. I didn't need 3 pitches. I didn't need a half a pitch. I was ready. That phone rang. Bring me in, baby. And so the next guy gets out. I go in, and we go 1, 2, 3. We saved it. And then ever since then, Tony left me in that spot. And then he was big about that, man. If you earned that spot and you were doing well, you got it. Didn't matter if you were young or old. Now, as a young player, you had to earn it with him because he loved him some veterans. But luckily he trusted me in those moments.
Well, you got the moment that I got to ask about. What was the moment like? You strike out Brandon Inge to win the World Series. I mean, Adam, that's a moment that you're playing wiffle ball in the backyard growing up with family, and it's always last out, World Series, game on the line. You're on the mound. You're in the box. You lived that. You got to live that exact moment. I'm getting goosebumps even thinking about it. How cool, how special was that moment? What do you remember about that moment?
Yeah, well, just living out that dream. I mean, it exactly was. And the funny thing about that is if I get 10 questions about my career, 9 of them aren't about that. 9 of them are about the NLCS playing against the Mets. And I think it was because the exact same reason you just said. In the NLCS, pitching against Beltran and those guys, it was the bottom of the ninth. Bases were loaded. Visiting team, playing the best team in baseball. Game 7. I mean, it was so dramatic. But then, going into that Tiger series, we were the heavy underdogs. Your bro was pitching at an otherworldly level, and the hitters through that lineup with Miggy and those guys were so good, just so good, and that lineup was so deep. We had nothing to lose, and we played a really sound game. And I think your recollection is probably the same as mine. If the Detroit Tigers play good defense, they don't throw the ball away, that's probably a different series. They don't slip in center field, and they, bro makes a couple PFP
They learn
plays
to throw
here
balls
and
to the bases.
Yeah. But, also we had guys step up in ways that were unimaginable. Our rookie, Anthony Reyes, pitched game 1 through 8 innings, 1 run. I just watched that game yesterday, actually, as I'm sitting in a hotel room in New Jersey. That game came on, and I watched it. It was unbelievable, game 1. And then, we had Jeff Weaver, who came in and was a huge addition for us down the stretch in the trade deadline. He pitched game 5, the one we closed it out on, and I think he went 8 innings, 1 run also. Jeff Suppan pitched some great game. Cart pitched a great game. Everyone was on point that game. Scott Rowland, huge home run. Albert's huge home run. David Eckstein, big hits left and right. I mean, everybody was on point. And that's the thing about baseball. It doesn't matter if you're the Atlanta Braves versus the Oakland A's in today's game. Any series, people could get hot, could play great, and anyone can beat anyone at this level. The talent is so great.
The guy you met on the mound after that strikeout, Yadier Molina, got to ask, because I think the two of you formed the greatest battery of all time. And I don't think there's really much of a question about it. What did Yadier mean to you as a teammate? Not only as a teammate, as a friend over all those years, all those starts. If you could talk about Yadier and what he means to you in your life, what would you say?
Yeah, and I'm so glad we got to share that record. That's a record that will never, ever get broken. Like impossible to break that record. That's like Cal Ripken's record. To me, that's like Cy Young's win record. Like it's just not going anywhere. That's impossible to break. But Yadier and I, we grew up together. We didn't just come up together. We were kids. I faced him the first time when we were in Double A in 2003, and he went 1 for 3 with a little bloop over second, by the way.
Still counts.
And and he was my catcher in AAA when I got traded over in 2004. And I'm 22 years old. He's 21 years old. We don't know anything about life, but we love being around each other. and always sat next to each other on the bus. You know, that dude. Funny thing about Yadi, he knows every word to every Zach Brown song that there's ever been. It's the most random thing. He loves country music, but he loves Zach Brown. And he knows we went to a Zach Brown concert a few years ago together, and the guy, you would have thought he was, you know, at the World Series parade. He was having so much fun. But, you know, our kids were raised together, you know, great friends. And I just love that guy as a person. We went and did Thanksgiving at his house a couple of years ago in Puerto Rico. And that was really special, man. Puerto Rico turkey is as good as it gets. It is good. They got all that Saison or whatever the spices on the outside of that turkey, man. So good.
So, your career just finished up. You got to 200 wins. Congrats on 200 wins, by the way. You're officially now part of the Fox Sports family, color commentator. How's the post-career transition to the booth going?
Good. I've my first game broadcasting with Fox is coming up here in a couple of days, May 4th. I'm actually up with MLB Network. Today's my last day. I go home for a couple of days, and then I go straight back out to Fox. And I love doing that with Fox. Those guys do such a great job. They're such a good host. They make you feel like part of the family. And here's the thing. And I've heard your brother talk about baseball during the game for a long, long time. Watching the game of baseball and talking about it and teaching it to the next generation is one of my favorite things to do. So, like, you know, if I love teaching young kids when they come into the clubhouse, like, all right, what are you thinking when this situation comes up? What are you thinking about this and that? And then they go, well, I'm thinking, and then you go, can I tweak that just a little bit? And I love that stuff. And so to be able to share that with the audience is what I'm looking forward to.
That's awesome, man. Well, welcome to the Fox Sports family. You're calling the game, the London series out there. You pumped for that?
Yeah, I am. And I'm more pumped too that I get to go out there and experience, like, because when I played in the London series last year, and it is like, it's a whirlwind. It's so much stuff going on. Go here, go there. Long trip. You get in kind of the middle of the day, and then you got a weird sleep patterns, and then you play the game, and then go back, and it's like you don't get to enjoy everything. So I'm going to go a couple of days early. I'm going to check out the city, and then my wife and I are going to go over to Paris for a couple of days and enjoy that time together, you know, as a retired couple. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I love that, man. Well, congratulations on a hell of a career. Congratulations on everything there, and pumped you joined the Fox Sports family. And thank you so much for joining me, man. This has been great.
Yeah, good talking
to you as well. See you around. See you soon. Man, what an awesome interview. Just wanted to thank Adam Wainwright again for joining me here on Flippin Bats. That was a lot of fun. What an awesome guy. So pumped to have him here with the Fox Sports family. So cool to go down the old road of 2006, hearing him talk about those teams, pitching in the bullpen. I remember those games like it was yesterday, and hearing him recall them like they were yesterday as well, and recall every single situation, pitching to Inge, pitching to Beltran in Game 7. That was so awesome. I really enjoyed talking to him. I hope you all enjoyed it as well. Make sure you follow, subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. Hit that follow, subscribe button. It does really help. You can also watch everything we do on Spotify, on YouTube as well at Flippin Bats Pod, and follow us on TikTok. We're getting close to 100,000 followers. We put some really cool stuff there, and that is our goal. So thank you all for listening. This one has been a blast. Thank you again to Adam Wainwright. And remember, until next time, my friends, find your bat and flip it. Peace.